Okay, the record is on, and anytime you're ready, go for it.
Hey, this is Thane Marcus Ringler from ThaneMarcus.com, and you are listening to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith.
Look at that. You're supposed to screw up or so I can laugh at you. You're just too on it. All right. Anyway, I'm going to hit stop. I'll be right back.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Dre Baldwin, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer, and welcome to the show. How's it going?
Thank you for having me, Jeff, on Vroom Vroom Veer. I don't think I can say that 3 times fast.
No, it's supposed to be tricky. Thank you for being here.
You succeeded at that.
Yeah. Okay. So you're at DreAllDay.com. So talk a little bit about what you're most excited about in your business today.
Yeah, I'm at DreAllDay.com amongst a bunch of other places online. But what I'm most excited about right now is taking this whole philosophy that I created over the years that I drew from my professional sports career and teaching people how those same mental game tools that are necessary in sports, how they apply in business and life, and of course to the up and coming athletes out there.
That's amazing. I think you're going to do well.
Me too.
I think you're going to kill it. Okay. So this is Vroom Vroom Beer. That means that we need to go back in time and talk about Dre Baldwin before he got on the team, right? Mm-hmm. So where did you grow up, and what was school like for you when you were growing up?
Yeah, well, my background is come from the city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, born and raised. My parents were big on education, specifically my mom. She was big on education. So she had my older sister. My sister's a year older than me. So she had both of us into reading and teaching us, kind of like pre-teaching us before we even started school. She was really big on making sure that her children
academics.
Had education.
Yeah.
Right. Because both her and my father they had us when they were 20 and 21. So they didn't even finish college before they had children. And my mom wanted to finish college. I don't know if my dad did so much, but my mom did. So she put that aside so that she could raise her children. So she was really big on making sure that we were academically and educationally successful.
That's
so
great.
Going to school, my sister was the older child. So I think she took the brunt of my mom's attention when it came to education. So my sister became like an academic superstar.
Gotcha.
Skipped the grade in elementary school.
Wow. Okay.
Ivy League scholarship, University of Penn.
Holy cow.
And she's a professor at UCLA to this very day. So I guess it worked.
It worked
with her. Yeah, absolutely worked. Now me, I got the intelligence part of it, but I was not that. I did not apply myself as well as a student. I did what I needed to do to get by.
Sounds like me.
Once I realized that I was smart enough to do enough, I think through elementary school, it didn't really matter because I didn't have anything else to do.
Right.
Middle school, I started, being like one of the bad kids in class for a year or two.
Right.
High school, then I started really focusing on sports. So I did enough work to get by the time I got to high school, and most of college, I did the same thing. Just enough to get by, enough to pass my classes. I wasn't going to flunk out.
Right.
I graduated and got a degree, but I was a C student, not because I have C-level smarts, but because I gave a C-level effort as a student.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. There's people these days hacking school like that. When you get your when you get your degree, nobody asks you what your GPA is.
Exactly. Nobody even asks if you have a degree nowadays.
That's true.
I can't remember the last time anybody asked me that question.
That's true. Yeah. It's weird. I think I picked that up probably in high school, right? I had friends that were all about the A, Mm-hmm. And I was like, I can pretty much just coast and get a B+.
Exactly.
I got stuff to do.
Exactly.
So
Video games, girls.
Right. Exactly. So I think we're on the same wavelength. There are those academic overachievers out there.
Yeah, my sister.
Bless them. Bless them because we're all different.
That's right.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about early days athletics, early days like sports, what were you into? I know you said you were a nerd. So I want to get into that later, but like athletically, like when you were a young kid, what were you into sports wise?
Well, I was
Just like
always
everything?
into sports. Yeah, I was always into sports from as young as I can remember. So coming from Philadelphia in the inner city, we didn't have yards, so we played in the driveway. And we called those the driveways. It was all concrete. So we played kickball, touch football, not tackle on the concrete.
Right.
Basketball, with the adjustable courts that you can have behind your house. We played basketball on adjustable courts, things like that. A little bit of wiffle ball, things like that, until neighbors got mad at the balls hitting their cars and stuff like that.
Right.
And so the first team sport that I tried to play, Jeff, was football, tackle football. And I felt like I was doing pretty good. I felt like I was pretty athletic. And I went to football practice for about 2 weeks. And then one day the coaches said, okay, starting next week, everybody come to practice with your gear, your football gear, all your pads and all that stuff, your helmet and all that. And I told my parents what the coaches had said. And my parents, they took it in. And about a day later, they said to me, hey, we can't afford football equipment. So that was pretty much the end of my football career.
Wow.
So I never actually played football.
Wow.
Because my parents were on.
You had to buy it, huh? Yikes.
Yeah, you got to buy football equipment. At least where I'm from, you had to buy it. They didn't supply it.
Yeah.
Wow. My parents were kind of on the balancing out. Because me and my sister are only a year apart. So they figured whatever they spent on me, they would have to spend it on her.
Right.
So they were looking at whatever that football equipment cost times 2, because they had to spend the same amount on my sister.
That can't be cheap either. That's a lot of gear.
No, I don't think so.
No, that's a lot of gear.
Yeah, even for a kid.
Ouch.
So, and you figure the older you get, you have to replace that equipment because you get bigger. So they put an end to my football career before it even started.
Wow.
Then I started playing. I played baseball after that because my father, he actually was a big baseball guy. He liked to coach. Well, I don't know how much he played. I think he might have played in high school, but he liked to coach baseball. So he was coaching youth baseball at the time that I started playing. And I played because he was the coach. And I only stuck around as long as I did because he was the coach. But I had no baseball talent. I didn't really like baseball. Wasn't really that.
It's kind of boring, right?
Yeah, well, it's boring if you can't play. It's boring.
Right. But I mean, even if you're good at it, I mean, it's just like the action. I don't want to knock baseball for people that dig it, but for me and you, I know what you're talking about. I mean, you spend, especially like if everything's going right, you're still standing around most of the game.
Right. But if you're good at it, that's exciting. It's kind of like somebody can say podcasting is boring, yet they suck at it. Right?
Good point.
Yeah, I sucked at baseball. So
you didn't like it.
Yeah. So I moved on.
Right.
The playground that I grew up playing at, the baseball field's right next to the basketball court. And where I come from, every young man tries their hand at basketball at some point. The great thing about basketball, Jeff, is that you don't need any equipment. At least in baseball, you need maybe some cleats, some pants, a glove, a bat, a ball, and you need multiple people to play baseball. In basketball, you don't need anything. You can just show up and just hope. It could be 30 people at the court. Only one person needs a ball. You got a game.
That's right.
So I started playing basketball around the age of 14, which is pretty late for a player who wants to go somewhere in basketball. And at the beginning, I was bad at it, just like I had been bad at football and bad at baseball. But for some reason, I had some inkling that I could maybe become good if I kept trying.
Okay.
And this is back in, we're talking the mid-90s, Jeff, here. So there's no Instagram, no YouTube. My father's 5'7", 5'9", rather. I'm 6'4", so he wasn't a basketball player, couldn't play at all. Nobody in my family, nobody from the neighborhood took me under their wing. Nobody taught me how to play basketball. I basically was self-taught. Just showing up to the court by myself and just practicing every single day.
Getting beat up.
Or not even that, Jeff. I wasn't even getting on the court to get beat up. Nobody would want me in the game because I wasn't good. So I would practice by myself.
Okay.
So in the heat of the summer,
self-taught. Okay.
Right. In the heat of the summer, what I would do, Jeff, is show up at the times when it was too hot, quote unquote, too hot for everybody else. And I would practice then because I had the court to myself. But then in the evening, when the sun went down, that's when all the players who could actually play came out. And I would try to play with them. Sometimes they would pick me, sometimes they wouldn't. But eventually worked my way onto the courts in the pickup games, is what we call those pickup.
Right.
And high school, now I started high school around the same time, age 14. And our high school didn't have a JV or a freshman team. We only had the varsity team.
Okay.
Which is the main basketball team. And so everybody tries out for that team. Every young man tries out for the basketball team.
One team. Wow. Okay.
One team.
Yeah.
No JV, no freshman. I didn't make it as a freshman. Wasn't that I didn't think I was going to make it as a freshman. I said, let me try out. Didn't make it. Big deal. Didn't matter. Sophomore year, didn't make it. Still wasn't that big of a deal. But junior year, I'm ready to go here, Jeff.
Right.
Now, junior year, I'm thinking I'll use this year as my warm up, get used to the game, And then my senior year, I'll be a superstar and I'll be, LeBron, and I'll become a legend. And
sure.
Right, so
good plan.
Now, junior year, I'm thinking, right, I'm growing into my body. I'm 16 now. I was getting a little bit more athletic, a little bit more confident. And I had read, because I was always a big reader, like I told you with my mother from back in the day, I read that Michael Jordan didn't make his high school team, so he was a junior.
Okay.
So Jeff, I'm still on track to be the greatest player of all time. I'm still on the
Yes, you're on time. Your schedule is okay. Right.
I'm on the Jordan schedule.
Yeah.
So I try out for the team and I don't make it again. Junior year, I don't make the basketball team. So at this point, it's looking like basketball is probably not going to work out. So I'm trying in my mind for the next couple of weeks after not making it my junior year, I'm trying to re-visualize my life in some other way outside of sports, because obviously reality, quote unquote, is telling me that it's not going to be sports. And this is, mind you, I'm 16 at this time. I had never read any books on personal development, but I had always been doing this kind of visualization before I even knew what to call it. And I'd always seen myself playing sports in some way. But after this third straight failure, I tried to come up with a different vision for my life.
You were trying to get a plan B going on, huh?
Exactly. Well, it was going to become plan A, because obviously plan A was not, that was the wrong plan A.
I like that attitude.
Right.
I just need a new plan A. It's not plan B.
Plan A is done. Right. That obviously was not plan A.
Right.
I misread the manual. So I'm trying to come up with a new vision for myself, and everything I try to come up with, no matter what I tried to think of, it kept coming back to sports. It kept coming back to playing basketball, which made no sense to me. But then someone at my local recreation center said, hey, there's a team that we're striking up in the neighborhood for players who aren't on their high school teams. You can play with us. So I said, all right, let me just play on this team. I mean, if I keep visualizing basketball, I might as well just play basketball on this team and at least have some fun this year. So
yeah, it'll be fun. I'll just do it for fun. I'll just do it for fun.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. At least give it a shot, because I couldn't come up with anything else.
Gotcha.
So I played on that team, and I actually did pretty good on that team. I was one of the more marquee players on that local team. And then the next year, I tried out for my high school team again, 4th year in a row. And this time I made it.
Congratulations. You made the team.
Yeah, it was like the climax, because here's what happened right after. I sat the bench the whole season and didn't play. I averaged 2 points a game as a senior in high school. So I was all of those years of working to try out and make the team, and then I sat the bench and barely even played. So they were sophomores.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with riding the bench, dude. I rode the bench all of my sports career. It's fun. You still get to go on the bus rides.
Yeah, it's like you
get to hang out with the cheerleaders. That's right.
It's like you always got. You don't have to pay.
That's right.
Yeah, you got a uniform and everything. So
that's right.
That's what I did my senior year of high school. So anyone looking at me at that point would have said, hey, this kid is going to be successful at something. It's probably not going to be sports. I knew I was going to college because, again, my mom with the education thing. So I ended up walking on at a school called Penn State Abington, which is a branch campus of Penn State University, because they had 23 different branches. And that campus was actually a Division III school. It wasn't even D3 yet. It was provisional D3, meaning they were about to become. And Division III is the third tier of college sports, for those who don't know. So most athletes who play D3 do not go pro in sports. They don't even think about going pro, let alone do they actually do it. But I played my college years, and at the end of my college career, I still had this idea I could go pro in sports. I didn't have anything else that I thought I really wanted to do. And there's many reasons for that, from just looking back at my parents over the years. But then I was able to, and I guess we could fill in the gaps on that. So I'll just fast forward and say I was able to hustle my way into a pro basketball career. That began a 9-year journey playing overseas, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. While at the same time, I'll give you one other piece. This is 2005 when I graduated from college. I took a VHS tape that I had. For those of you who don't remember VHS tapes.
I do remember VHS tapes.
I know you remember, but some of the listeners might not remember.
Right, I get you.
Right, and I took that tape. I got it transferred onto a digital CD, put it in a desktop computer, and I uploaded this 2-minute video that I had that was like a highlight of me playing basketball to this brand new website that I just heard of, where you can put up as much video as you want for free. It's called youtube.com.
Yeah, I remember that. I've heard of that.
Yes. Yeah,
it was new back in 2005. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's where I actually started building my name online. Most people never saw me play overseas or in college, but a lot of people saw me on YouTube. That's where I kind of started building my brand by publishing content before we were even using those phrases. So I'll let you ask questions and we can fill in the rest of it.
Well, yeah, I want to go back and remember we teased the idea because somewhere on your website you said I'm a nerd. So I want to dive down into what kind of nerd you are. Talk a little bit about what sort of nerdy things you like to do.
Back in the late 80s, early 90s, for those old enough to remember, there used to be a TV show called Family Matters. You remember that show?
Family Matters.
If you don't remember the show, you probably remember one of the main character of the show was a guy named Steve Urkel. You remember Steve Urkel?
That one. Oh, okay.
Yes,
okay. That's Family Matters. Okay, gotcha.
Yes, Steve Urkel. So this is a kid who was a young kid, growing boy, obviously. He had these clothes that were a little bit too tight. He was a little bit too tall for his pants. Arms a little bit too long for his sweaters.
Yep.
He had on these thick bifocal glasses, and he was a nerd. He was the kind of kid that got picked on and laughed at.
Right.
This is before it was cool to be a nerd. Nowadays it's cool to be a nerd because now jobs.
The nerds have won. Yes.
Yeah, nerds have taken over. Silicon Valley is dominating things.
That's
but back in the 90s, being a nerd was not the cool thing to be.
That's right.
So I was a nerd back then, and I was a nerd like if you saw me, you would say this kid's a nerd without knowing anything about me, just by the way that I was dressed. I'm growing. I was too tall for my clothes.
Gotcha.
My parents weren't going to buy me new stuff. I had these thick bifocal glasses.
Right.
I got my parents, when I was 10 years old, my parents took me to the eye doctor and got me contact lenses. That was a life-changing moment for me.
Mm-hmm.
I wear contacts to this day. So you still got the glasses, Jeff.
These are readers. I need these to, if I want to read anything. Yeah. But
right,
so I didn't grow up with glasses, but yes, I was a nerd.
Okay.
So were you into video games back then too?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. What kind of games did you play?
Mostly sports games. Well, this is Nintendo days, Jeff. So we're talking early Nintendo. This is like when Nintendo first came out. Like Super Mario Brothers.
NES Nintendo?
Yes, NES Nintendo. I don't play video games now. I haven't played a video game since college. But Mario Brothers.
You should come back. It's still fun.
I've heard.
Yeah.
I've heard. I see it. But it's a big time suck. So I know I couldn't do it with what I did.
That's true. You're right. Yeah. You're right. I mean,
now you can be a professional video game player now.
Esports. Most of those esports games I'm not really all that into. I can watch them though. I can watch them and like them. There's this one of the most popular games out there is called Counter-Strike. And that's like a run around, shoot your friends kind of game.
Yeah, those are the popular games.
Yeah, in esports, that's probably like the one that they play the most on esports. But it's fun to watch. Yeah.
It's funny that you say that though, because I was talking to someone just a week or so ago, and they were saying that their child goes online and watches other people play video games.
Yeah, that's Twitch.
Like, that's watching Twitch. Other people play.
Oh yeah.
How is that entertaining? I don't.
It is. It's oddly entertaining. Yeah. So that started. So okay. So let's pretend you're still in the video games and you're on a console that doesn't have this exclusive game, right? Okay. So I'm an Xbox guy, and this game that I want to play is on PlayStation. I can't play that, right?
Right.
Well, do I want? If I have all the money in the world, I just buy both, right? But most kids don't, right? They can only whine at their parents so much, and they get one or the other, So if you're not, you can go watch that game on YouTube and not pay for it. Okay. So that's almost as good as playing a game, watching it.
Okay.
It depends on the game. Depends on the game.
I've never experienced watching someone play a video game.
I've actually come close to I think one time I watched a whole video game. Now, not all at once.
You mean like every stage of the game?
Well, yeah. I don't know how many videos it was, but it was like several hours. It was like watching a TV show on YouTube.
All right.
And the TV show was a video game with Ellen Page.
The whole series,
I watched the whole damn game, right?
Yeah. That's crazy. I know that it happens, but I don't know that feeling.
Yeah, and then Twitch is that if you go to twitch.com, you can sign up, make an account. People pay people to watch them play video games. Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Right.
It's crazy. You and I,
maybe I wouldn't have become an athlete.
You and I, we could do that and get paid. Right. Because we would bring a completely different voice. Right.
Yes.
They would call me Geezer Gamer or something.
don't think you're old enough to be a geezer.
Well, in gaming world, I am. I'm 51, so that makes me a
gaming world. Yes.
In the gaming world, I would
Probably
be a
me
geezer.
too. Yeah,
Probably
38.
38. I retired from the Air Force when I was 38.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so you are definitely a nerd. So what was your favorite game back then? You said like Mario, that kind of, what sort of game, I should say? Sports
Mario
games?
was where I started. Where I ended in college, the main game we played was Madden football.
Oh, that's
the
a good
game
game.
that I spent the most time on, Jeff. I do remember this because my mom started to get concerned. She started to put regulations on me in playing this. It was a game called Doom. You remember Doom?
Doom. Yeah, that was the beginning,
computer
man.
game.
That was the beginning. Yes.
Yeah. I played that in high school. And here's the thing, because my mom had a rule. My sister and I were not allowed to play video games on school days. We could only play on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Perfect.
But Doom was a computer game. Doom was on a computer.
She didn't know.
Right. So So I circumvented the rules.
That means you're hacking. You did not. No, you didn't. You were hacking. That's a good skill.
Right. So I hacked. Right.
You
this is before we had hacking. So
that's right.
I hacked the rules, and I would be on the computer, quote unquote, on the computer playing Doom. And one day, my mom, she came to this realization. She said, "All you're doing is substituting Doom for playing." At the time, it was Sega Genesis. You're substituting Doom for Sega Genesis. So now you can't play Doom anymore. So she shut that down.
Bummer.
But I used to play Doom. I mean, for hours, I used to play that game. And that was, you're saying that was the beginning of those kind of first-person shooter games.
Correctamundo. That was like that was the granddaddy beginning of first-person shooters. Yep. Okay, so it's funny because I was such a nerd. Doom is what got me to move from my nerdy computer. Did you ever hear of an Amiga computer? Yeah, I know. Good face.
No idea what that is.
So Amiga was like the third computer company. There was Apple, right? Everybody knows Apple. And then Amiga was this company called Commodore.
I remember the name.
Yeah, Commodore made the Amiga.
Commodore.
Okay. So I had an Amiga, whatever. I don't even remember. But that was like early 90s, right? Mm-hmm. And then Doom came out, and I couldn't play Doom on my Amiga, right? Oh. It was just not set up to do that. It was a good computer still, but Doom was why I bought a PC.
Right. Doom was made for the PC, right?
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
All right. I had a PC at the time.
Right. Right. That's funny. Because I didn't, to me, like at that time, PC computers they sucked, as far as like hobby computers went. It was like, why would I want to do this? But eventually they beat out, Amiga died, and then Apple didn't really go down the game way. So anyway, I digress as usual. Okay. So let's dig into like college days. So did you play? Okay. You did play, but you said
basketball.
Yeah. You played college basketball. How was that? I mean, were you like a star? Where you definitely didn't sit the bench, right?
Right. So I'll give you more details in college. I walked on at this school called Penn State Abington.
Right.
At the time, it wasn't even a full-fledged Division III school. It was kind of like, it was the kind of school where you were allowed to play 2 years of sports, even though you could go there for 4 years academically. That's just the way they had it set up.
Okay.
The Penn State branch system. Nowadays, it's a full-fledged D3, but at the time, you could only play 2 years. So I went there my freshman year, and I only went there because, actually go back in the story, my senior year of high school, I went to what they call a magnet school in Philadelphia, which means like stronger academically. And I had a pretty high GPA because the GPA is weighted against all the other schools. So even though I was pretty average in high school, in my school, against all the schools in the city of Philadelphia, my GPA was actually pretty high. So I'm like one of the smart kids. So I started applying to all these colleges. I had no reason to go to any particular college. I had no leaning. I didn't have any scholarships at the time. So I applied to like every college. They would send you back in these days, you might remember this, Jeff. They would send you these fee waivers where you didn't have to pay to apply to college.
Right.
So any school that sent me a fee waiver, I just applied. I'll apply to every school.
Why not? It's free.
Yeah, I got accepted to like 20 colleges. So
nice.
So, and they had this bulletin board in my high school because they were used to sending everybody to college. So this bulletin board would have every senior and all the colleges you got accepted to. And I probably had the most acceptances of anybody because I applied to every school.
Right,
so I'm like,
that's
man,
how
I can
that
go to all these
works.
schools.
That's how that works.
So Penn State
You
was
can't
one of
get
the schools
accepted if you don't apply.
Exactly. So I applied to all these schools, and my parents were like, well, why don't you apply to some local schools just in case? So I applied to like St. Joe's, which is outside of Philadelphia. It was like a $40 fee. But I'm applying to schools in California, Tennessee, anybody who sent me a fee waiver. So I got accepted to damn near everybody. And I still didn't know which one to go to. So I'm telling my counselor at my high school that, hey, I want to go to this school. It was a school called David Lipscomb University in like Tennessee somewhere. And this school was now where I come from, I went to high school in North Philadelphia. So my high school was almost like 90% black.
Right.
And this school in Tennessee was probably 98% white.
Right.
And I'd never been to Tennessee.
Right.
And the counselor at my high school, she happened to be white. So when I'm telling her, hey, I want to go to this school, this Lipscomb school, she's looking at me like,
you don't know what the world is like. Yeah, right.
She's like, you're going to be in culture shock. You're not going to know what to do with this school. You don't want to go there.
Right.
And she's like half joking, but she's really trying to tell me like, no, you don't want to go to this school. Wouldn't have been that bad of a thing, I don't think. But I ended up not going there.
Okay.
But what happened
That's
late in my senior year, a recruiter from Morehouse College down in Atlanta, HBCU, in Atlanta came to my high school recruiting, and he saw my SAT scores, and he offered me a 50% scholarship.
Wow.
So he said, I'll give you a 50% scholarship to come to Morehouse. So I told my parents, and they were excited, and my counselors are excited, and everybody's like, wow, going to Morehouse, you're going to be what they call Morehouse man. You know, Morehouse was Spike Lee went there, Martin Luther King went there.
Oh, wow.
Several people went to Morehouse. I can't remember everyone, but many prominent African Americans. So that's where I figure I'm going. So my parents, they're doing the numbers on this because remember, it was a 50% scholarship, not 100%. And my parents told me at the end of my senior year of high school, at a point when most students already know where they're going, they said, son, even if we take out loans for the other 50%, we're going to be paying for your education for the rest of our lives, because Morehouse was not a cheap
right.
to go to.
Okay, it's expensive.
So they told me, you can't go there because you don't have any credit.
Need the full ride.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have a full ride. You don't have any credit. You can't get any money. So this is not going to happen. And they said, well, you got accepted to all these other colleges. One of the colleges I got accepted to was Penn State University.
Okay.
Now, I'm from Pennsylvania, so that's an in-state school, and the tuition is much lower.
Yeah,
so they said, go to Penn State Abington, which is right near Philadelphia. So I literally lived at home my freshman year of college, and I would just commute to the Abington campus. And I hated that because I wanted the college experience. I wanted to get the hell out of my parents' house. That was the whole point of going to Tennessee. Right? That's why I wanted to go to David Lipscomb. So I get out of there.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's why I joined the Air Force, just to get the hell out of Dodge.
Exactly. Get out of there. And so I went to Abington my freshman year, walked on to the basketball team. I mean, I was not invited. Nobody knew who I was. But I walked in there and tried out, and I impressed. A good thing, Abington was a very small campus. So it's not like this is some basketball powerhouse that I'm going in dominating.
Right.
I just go in there and show my game, and I stood out immediately. Made the team. I was a starter my freshman year after sitting the bench in high school. Go figure. And at the end of my freshman year, I would still drive up to the campus every day at Abington, even though I wasn't taking classes, Jeff, just so I could practice and work on my game, because the gym was available, and it was the only indoor gym that I had access to for free because I was a student at Penn State. So I'm up there working out by myself every day. Nobody else ever came in the gym. Had the whole gym to myself. And one morning I had not eaten breakfast before I left the house. So I walked across the campus to the cafeteria to get something to eat. And some random dude walks up to me and starts asking me questions like, hey, what position do you play? Now, mind you, we're not even in the gym. I don't have a basketball with me or anything. I have the gear on, but I don't have a ball. And I don't know this guy. But we get to talking. Turns out he's a coach from a different campus of Penn State's branch system.
Oh, wow.
A Division III school called Penn State Altoona. They are full-fledged D3. So basically a step up from Abington. He recruits me on the spot. I ended up going there for my last 3 years, Penn State Altoona. Now that coach who recruited me, I played for him my sophomore year. He gets fired after my sophomore year, that coach. So now we get a new coach. So now I'm on my third coach in 3 years. This new coach, and those who don't know college sports, when a new coach comes in, they usually clean house. They get rid of a lot of the old players and bring in their own players.
Wow.
Not because the old players are bad, but because they want to have their own regime. Kind of like a new CEO comes in and they get rid of the CFO, they bring in different people.
We need new blood.
Exactly. So that's what coaches do in college sports. I was one of the people who got clean. He cleaned out basically everybody. Nobody lasted from the previous regime. So I didn't even play basketball my last year and a half of college. I was not on the basketball team at all. I was fully eligible, fully healthy, not on the team.
Wow.
So I graduated from college with that as my resume, and now I'm telling my parents I want to play professional basketball overseas. So they didn't quite, they didn't quite see that. They didn't quite see my vision.
That's great, though. I want to know where you came up with this idea of playing basketball overseas. Did you just know that the NBA was out of the question, that this was not going to happen?
So when it comes to the NBA, they only draft 60 players every year. And 60 is not a lot. Every year from
that's
college
not a lot.
basketball
That's
alone,
right. That's not a
you're
lot.
talking to a couple thousand guys graduate. And we're talking Division I, Division II, Division III.
So that is literally creme de la creme.
Yes. It's literally that all the other players out there trying to play.
Right.
It's really hard to get into the NBA. Playing in the NBA is not just it is a meritocracy, but at the same time, in many ways, it's not, because you had to be on somebody's radar even to get looked at in the first place.
Right.
So I knew coming out of a D3 school with no resume whatsoever, overseas would probably at least be my first step. Maybe I could get to the NBA after that.
Maybe build up a little bit of visibility in Europe kind of thing. Right.
Exactly. So I had a teammate of mine. He knew guys who had actually played overseas. Where he was from, he knew players who had played. So he was the one who kind of told me, hey, overseas is an option. He said, the thing you got to do, you have to go to an exposure camp. You know what an exposure camp is, Jeff?
No, talk. See, so this is like the first time I've ever talked to anybody in the, overseas world. Yeah. Overseas ball world. Yeah. So,
so
brand new.
All right. Perfect. I'm glad I'm here.
Yeah.
So an exposure camp is like a job fair, but for athletes.
Okay.
Now, at a normal job fair, everybody shows up with their resumes, you shake hands, and you try to impress people by conversation.
Right.
At an exposure camp, you show up, you bring your basketball gear, and you impress people by actually playing basketball in front of them.
It's like an audition almost.
Yes, it's like an audition.
It's a sport audition.
The thing is, yes. But what makes it tricky, Jeff, is that basketball is a team sport. There's 5 people on your team, or at least on the court at the same time.
That's true.
But everybody on the team is trying to impress. Everybody's trying to get a job playing overseas. So it's not like one guy's trying to get a job. Everybody's trying to get a job. And in a sport like basketball, when everyone's trying to get a job, players play very selfishly. But at the same time, you need to do that so that you can get seen. But you also don't want to make it look like you're being selfish, because then you look like a player who can't help a team. So it's like a catch-22, right?
That is, you just summed up everything that is bad about the job world in life. It's like everybody always says, be a team player. And then when you do that, and you're
you're taking advantage of.
Of course. It's like, we know this now, right?
Absolutely.
But I wish they would just tell people that. It's like that would be worth 3 days of coaching for any high school student, right? This is like the BS that the world tries to sell you.
Right. So it's a very Machiavellian way of looking
thank
at
you.
life, but it's true.
It's true, though.
Yes.
About that Machiavellian way of looking at life, like the 42 powers. What do they call those? The power laws?
48 laws of power.
Best book ever.
Actually, my favorite book, Jeff. So
yeah. No, it's a good book, but it's that guy. The tone is a little crazy, but I think I know why he takes it. But anyway, I digress again. But that little thing that you just said there, that like you have to dance that line of, everybody knows I'm here to show, but you can't look like you're here to show. Anyway, I thought that's worth talking about a little bit. Anyway, proceed.
Okay. So go to this exposure camp. I play well at the exposure camp. So I'm able to balance the selfishness and the team play at the same time. Played pretty well. They write me up a nice scouting report on my abilities. They give me the footage from the games, because you play 2 games. Both you play on Saturday and Sunday. The camp's only 2 days.
So you're paying Saturday, to do this, I bet.
Sunday. Oh, no. You pay them.
That's what I meant. Yeah. You're paying them to do this.
You're paying, yes.
Yes.
This is an investment. So we drove, actually, the camp was in Orlando. I'm from Philadelphia. We rented a car, drove from Philadelphia to Orlando on a Friday afternoon. The camp started at 9 a.m. on a Saturday. We pulled up into the parking lot at 9 a.m. on Saturday. We didn't even sleep. Me and a couple of my teammates from college.
Wow.
And played. And now you could do this when you're 23. I probably couldn't do it now, but I did it then. So I played pretty well at that camp, Jeff. They gave me the footage. Now, the footage was that VHS tape that I referenced a few minutes ago.
Gotcha.
That footage was on VHS. So I knew that VHS, you drop a VHS tape, it gets wet, it gets hot, you lose it. So I put it on digital, put it on this new site called youtube.com. And that's where my second career started. And I didn't even know that was a career until a few years later. But that was my college experience, to answer your question.
That's amazing. That's a great story. Well done. Yeah, and I had no idea that whole overseas thing was even a thing. I've got a couple of stories to talk about it. So when I was stationed in Japan, there was, I went to Tokyo. So we were way up north in Japan, like 400 miles away from Tokyo. We took a bus just to watch the Packers play a preseason game against the Chiefs. Back in the Brett Favre days. The only time in my life I saw Brett Favre play. He played like a series,
Right.
Preseason.
Right. This is on TV, you're saying? Or was this in person?
No, I got to see it in person. I was at the game in Japan. So they
played in Japan?
They did a preseason game in Japan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Way back when. Back when. It had to be in the 90s sometime. I don't remember.
Well, I know they played, those two teams play every year in the preseason because they're close to each other.
Oh, is that right?
Or at least I thought they were. Or maybe they're not. Now that I'm thinking about geographically.
Chiefs, Kansas City.
They always played each other. Kansas City.
I think it's because of Super Bowl I.
Oh, okay.
Is probably the connection.
Yeah, but they always will play in the preseason. I don't know if they do now.
That's probably just why there's all these traditions that you don't really know why they do it all the time. Right. It's like, why is it always Detroit and Dallas on Thanksgiving? We don't know, but there's a story behind that. There's a story. Yeah, there's a story.
Very true.
That's right. Yeah. So anyway, when I'm in Japan, in Tokyo with my buddies, we went to Hard Rock Cafe because it's one of the few places to get American food. And the day after I went home, my buddies go out back to Hard Rock Cafe and they run into like 3 former pro baseball players that are now playing in Japan.
Right. There's a league in Japan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's tons of Americans playing in Japan baseball now. Right. And they just walk over and say, hey, I used to be a fan. I'm a big fan of, I can't remember the team, but, I was just pissed off because I wasn't there. So the next thing that happened was they went, oh, cool. And these baseball players took my buddies out and spent a ton of money on them in Tokyo and got them drunk. And and I missed all of that. That's a regret. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. But anyway, I digress as I usually do. Okay. So talk about, so how does your pro game start? So what was like your entry into pro basketball overseas? Where were you? What was it like?
Great question. So after that exposure camp, I go back home to Philadelphia. And now I have 2 things going for me. Actually, before I go to that, I go back to my full-time job. I was working at this gym called Bally Total Fitness, selling gym memberships. And that's summer of 2005. So after I graduated, I worked at Foot Locker as an assistant manager, then Bally selling memberships. I went to the exposure camp after taking a weekend off from my job at Bally just to go to Orlando and come back. So now I'm back at work because everything didn't just start just like that. It didn't spontaneously combust. What happened is I took
You posted the video, right?
Right. I posted the video and now I have this VHS tape and I have my scouting report from this third-party source saying that I'm good. So now I started reaching out because nobody at the camp itself reached out and to sign me to a contract. There are people who came up and talked to me, shook my hand, but nobody offered me a deal. So I don't have a contract yet. So now I still need an agent. An agent is basically the go-between between the overseas teams and the players because nobody overseas knows me, but they have relationships with the agent. So I said, let me find this middleman who can help me connect to a team. So now I start reaching out to every agent I can find on Google.
That can't be cheap.
Well,
you got to pay those people, right?
Not exactly. So it's free to reach out to them. Just to reach out to them is free. It's kind of like reaching out to a lawyer, for a free consultation. Gotcha. They'll talk to you, but then you find out what you can do. So I reach out to every basketball agent I can find on Google. I let them know, here's who I am. Here's what I've done. Here's my
Here's my tape.
report.
Here's my scouting
Yeah,
report.
and I have footage.
It's basically
Now, here's
this
the
my,
thing.
my resume, right?
Right. And
Right.
this is before I had the video on YouTube. I didn't have it on YouTube yet. I still had the full footage on VHS tape.
Okay.
So at this time, I had a double-decker VCR. And those of you who know what a VCR is what you put a VHS tape in. And
Video cassette recorder. Yes. You had a double decker. You had a duper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can make copies of my own tape. So I go to Eckerd. I don't think Eckerd's in business anymore. The drugstore.
Okay.
So I would go there and I bought a 10-pack of blank VHS tapes and I made copies of my own footage.
That's great.
Yeah. And I bought a bunch of bubble mailers and I would make copies and I would go to the post office and mail these VHS tapes out to agents all around the world who told me they were interested in seeing my footage to see if they could possibly help me out. Because what they're gauging is this guy good enough to play pro basketball? If he is, then I'll sign him and I'll represent him. And the way that the world works with agents, Jeff, is that the agent will represent you. You don't pay your agent, but when you sign a contract, the agent gets a percentage of the money that you make. So
Gotcha.
That's the way that it works. So they basically work on spec, but they don't work with everybody because they only work with players who look like they are capable of getting.
They're only going to work with people that can make the money.
Exactly. It's just like acting or modeling or a book deal or anything. They're not going to sign everybody. So I had to sell myself to these agents to get one of them to sell me to a team. So I was able to do that. I got one agent to represent me. And a couple months later, I went to the exposure camp in June. And in late August 2005, that's when I signed my first contract. I was playing in the country of Lithuania in the city of Kaunas. So that's when my career started.
Wow.
And from there, I traveled through 8 different countries, never played in the same country more than once, never stayed in the same country more than a year. And that was my career playing basketball. And that career was not smooth all the time, Jeff. There were times where I did not have a contract.
Right.
There were times where I didn't know where my next deal was coming from.
Right.
My original agent quit the agency world because he thought the overseas basketball world was very shady, it was very dirty. People were not honest, and that's true. So he quit and went back to being a lawyer.
Okay.
So,
wow.
Yeah, I went through several different agents. There were times where I worked as my own agent, and there were also times to kind of tie together the other side of the story, the parallel business, when I didn't have a job, and I said to myself, hey, I need to get some control over my career, some control over my destiny. And that's when I started asking myself a really good question. How can I take the things that I enjoy, which is being on the internet and being around basketball, how can I combine them and make money? That was a really great question. I didn't know the answer, but it was a great question.
Right.
And because I asked myself that question, that's when I started focusing more on, how about I put some more videos on this YouTube thing and see if more people start following me and listening to me? How about I put some more time into this website that I have here, DreAllDay.com, and see if I can, put some content on there. We weren't even calling it content. There's more blog posts on there to see if we get people to know who I am. And that was a really great question that I asked myself, because that became the thing that made people know me by around 2010. So it's about 5 years into my basketball career.
Right.
People started asking me to make them programs like, Dre, can you teach me how to get good at basketball? Can you teach me how to practice every day like you do?
Okay.
This is when I started making my own products. So this is probably around 2008 through 2010, around that time period.
Right.
That's the incubation period for my business that I still run to this very day. But it started exclusively as basketball stuff. My first product was a $4.99 PDF that just showed basketball players how to practice dribbling the ball. That's all it was.
That's perfect. Right. I love it. Yes. That's perfect.
The videos were straight off of YouTube.
Yeah.
All I did was put the link to the video. I made a fancy name for the drill. I would explain in words, here's how you do it. Here's why you're doing it. Here's how many times to do it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And I made a list of those, and I made it each day what to do. And I sold that product for $4.99. And when I sold my first product, I remember, Jeff, you remember Blackberries, right?
I do.
Okay, so I had a Blackberry at the time. And when you got an email or a text message on a Blackberry, a little red light would start blinking. So I remember when the red light started blinking on my Blackberry, I read it and said, email, you made a new sale. And I was using this free hosting platform called Weebly. And I think Weebly still exists.
Weebly is still around, yeah.
I had a one-page website, $4.99. So I made my first sale, and here's how primitive this was, Jeff. That when I made the sale, I had to open my laptop, go on my email, and physically add the attachment of the program and email it to the customer because I didn't have auto delivery set up. I didn't even know auto delivery existed.
That's okay. That's not so bad, right?
It's a good problem to have, right? You got customers who need to fulfill your
Somebody
orders.
just paid you $4.
Exactly. So for 2 weeks.
Or $5 almost.
For 2 weeks, I was manually fulfilling my orders, and I asked myself, there got to be a way to do this automatically. So I found a platform that did it automatically. What was that called? I think it's called eJunkie, eJunkie.com. I don't know if they still exist.
It's like a shopping cart kind of thing.
Yeah, it was like a shopping cart. So it automatically connected to my site, and every time I made a sale, it automatically sent them.
Nice.
I eventually graduated to Shopify. Nowadays, I do sales funnel.
Yeah.
That was how I got started as an entrepreneur.
Amazing. That's really cool.
Let me tell you one last thing. When I made that first sale, Jeff,
everybody loves their first sale, man, right?
Yes. This is going to be more powerful than playing professional basketball, because in the basketball world, somebody has to agree that you are worth the money.
Right.
In the entrepreneurship world, I just created this product out of absolutely nothing, and I made money. I can do this forever. That was the key to me.
And you didn't risk like breaking anything, you're right. Yeah. Right. No, I get it. Yeah. Your excitement about that first sale reminds me of my wife. She's she doesn't really want to be an entrepreneur, but she really loves sales.
Right.
Okay. So she just sells stuff on eBay. Right.
Right.
But she gets so excited when she has that sale. Yeah. I got a sale. Yeah.
It's a magical moment.
Yeah. Right.
You get someone else to agree that your thing is worth what you say is worth.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it feels great. Right.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So, and the timing of everything in your life seems like almost like scary, magical sometimes when you, right?
Yeah.
A little bit.
It feels like that looking back at it, but at the time you don't know that it's going to work.
That's true. But when you look back at it, you agree though, right? It's like, what's going on? Sometimes it's scary, right? It's like, is this for real? Is this how life really works? It's not like it doesn't get shitty sometimes. It does, right? But, I'm sure you went through some stuff. Before we wrap up, because we're wrapping up now, so what was your personal relationship situation like when you were traveling around in Europe? Just curious, because there's a lot of nice looking ladies in Europe.
That is a fact.
Good smile.
When I started my career, I was single. I started dating a girl probably like 2 or 3 years into my career in the United States.
Okay.
Then when I would travel, there was times where we were not together when I would go overseas and travel, because just relationship.
Just put it on pause. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
We're on pause now. Right.
And then, I just signed a deal. We're on pause.
Right.
So,
okay.
It didn't happen like that, but that's what ended up happening. Then at the end of my career, I was single and then started a relationship right at the end. When my career ended, I started a relationship. So the girl I'm with now, she never saw me when I was good at basketball, but she still likes me. So obviously,
okay.
Yeah,
okay. So it seems like they were like, you were thinking about that, right? You didn't want somebody like who is a basketball groupie, right?
Yeah. No, I would not have attracted that type of woman. Maybe temporarily, but not in anything long term.
So diplomatic. Well done.
Maybe in the short term.
Yeah. So, I gotcha. Maybe just
so that was my situation. But traveling overseas,
a dinner.
Yes, a lot of beautiful women. Yeah. Yeah, that's all I can say.
No, the reason why I ask is you started in Lithuania. And Lithuania, when I hear that, I think Eastern Europe, right?
That's right.
And when I was where was I? I was in Qatar on a deployment for 4 months, and I worked with a bunch of special forces guys. I was not special forces, okay? I was a nerd all my time. I just happened to work with them. And they talked a lot about going to all of the stands, Uzbekistan and this stand and that stand. And the thing that I didn't know then, and everybody knows now, is they called it the land of the walking Barbie doll. They all look like
6
foot blondes everywhere.
It was like that. When I was in Kaunas, it was like that. That's all you saw. There are no obese women walking around in that part of the country.
Right. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It is crazy.
And it's got to be very tempting and fun at the same time when you're a young man coming out of college.
Yeah, it's just fun. It's not even tempting.
It's just fun.
When you're thinking about it. Yeah, fun is when you're doing it. Tempting is when you can't do anything.
Amen. Hey, Dre, this has been a blast. So as we wrap up, let's talk about how people can best get in touch with Dre Baldwin at DreAllDay.com.
Sure. Well, I'm on every social media platform except TikTok. That's the only thing I'm not on, but I'm on everything else. I publish on every platform every single day. Probably Instagram is the most active one right now.
Coming soon, you're going to be playing games with me on Twitch. That'd be a hoot.
Video games on Twitch. Yeah. Maybe one day. Maybe one day.
Not.
I do live streams every day on
nice.
Facebook or Instagram and on Periscope. I have a physical book that I give people for free as an introduction to me if they just cover shipping. Can I tell them about that?
Of course, please.
All right. That book is called The Mirror of Motivation. Are we on video? Because I have a copy of it.
We're not recording the video, so nobody's going to see it. You can show me.
Right here.
It is a physical book.
Self-Guide to Self-Discipline. Yes, you can see it. So Jeff can vouch. Self-Guide to Self-Discipline. The reason people start with that book is everybody in life has things they want to achieve and things that they understand they need to do. But a lot of people never ask themselves the critical question: who do I need to be as a person? How do I need to carry myself? How do I need to conduct myself?
Wow.
How do I need to see myself when I look in the mirror?
That's
when
next
you change
level.
the energy of who you are being, then what you are doing will produce different results. So this book, The Mirror of Motivation, will give you the framework for you to determine who you need to be. That's why it's called The Mirror. It's not a hype up. It is not me motivating you. It is you doing it for yourself. I create the framework. You do all the rest. You can get that book for free. All you do is cover a small shipping charge by going to mirrorofmotivation.com. Mirrorofmotivation.com.
Awesome. Dre, this has been a blast.
Yes, it has been. This is fun.
This is fun, right?
We didn't even get to the second half of the story.
See, so we have part 2 all teed up and teased. It's ready to go. We've already talked about
part 1.
There you go. This is part 1. There will be many more. It's been a blast, man. Thank you very much. You have an excellent day for the rest of your day. I mean, there's nothing to do. We're in COVID world, but enjoy your next Zoom call, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Have a good one, brother.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.